The men's compulsory are arriving. The parade of athletes, the United States gold medals are the immediate attraction beginning today in Gymnastics Hall. Hello everyone, Dick Enberg with gold medal winning from 1984 Bart Connor. This is the start of the men's competition, the compulsory round. That was one of your strengths.
Absolutely. The compulsories were very important for me, as they will be for the American team here. Now, what the compulsory exercises are is the International Gymnastics Federation 4 years ago preset a number of routines that all these gymnasts are going to have to perform, and they'll be judged on their technical perfection, the execution with the form, and of course each gymnast is going to try to add their own style and elegance to these exercises.
And the U.S. team members are looking for not perfect 10s necessarily, but a 9-7 isn't good enough.
And not really at this competition, and the U.S. team got a really bad draw coming into this event. They were coming off the World Championships with a 9th place finish, not a lot of momentum coming in here, and they got the worst draw possible. They're in the early rounds where the judges tend to be more restrictive with the scores. It's going to be tough for them to pull high scores this early.
And there is the U.S. team. Tom Schlesinger with the United States contingent is the alternate. Kevin Davis, Scott Johnson, Charles Lakes, Dominic Minicucci, Lance Ringnold, the youngest at 18, Wes Suter. A strong Nebraska relationship, and that also for Illinois. Other than those two universities, no other schools in the U.S. represented. And there's Lance Ringnold. He'll be up first on the vault, which is the first of the 6 rotations for the United States. And it couldn't be tougher. I'd like you to reiterate that, Bart.
Well, I think, Dick, that it's important that everybody realize that this is an early session. The judges tend to be very restrictive on the scores because they know as the day goes on, they want to save some scores at the top so that if there are some routines that are perhaps better, they have some room to place those scores in. So it's usually been death to get the first round draw in competition. And, of course, for the men's team here in the U.S., it's going to be very difficult.
You heard the instructions of Abraham Israel A.B. Grossfeld, the 54-year-old head coach of the men's team, former Olympian himself, competed in 56 and 60 and was the coach of the 84 team that won the team gold. Here's a young man we're going to watch closely. He could be something really special, making this team at 18, the youngest American in 20 years.
I remember when I competed in the games in 76, I was 18 years old, and I was scared to death, Dick. But he seems really cool. He handles a high level of difficulty, and I think he offers a lot to even his older teammates in terms of stability and competition.
Again, this is a compulsory vault.
It's going to be a handspring front. Actually, not a bad vault at all for Lance Ringnold. A good start for the U.S. team. Not a dynamic vault, and certainly one that didn't knock your socks off, but a very clean one, good distance from the horse, and good height in the air, which of course is what the judges are looking for. One thing that they'll notice in deduction is right here, a little bit of a break in form at the beginning, and a not a very explosive kick out of the tuck. You can see once again as he comes on, he has tremendous speed and a very good push right here. Good position in the air. He needs to explode out of the tuck a little bit more. And, of course, there is one major hop, which, of course, will be at least 1/10 of a point deduction.
Ringnold waiting for his score. He'll be followed by another youngster, 19-year-old Dominic Minicucci. Youngster in terms of men's competition. Usually find their ages in the 20s. For women, it's more of a girls' sport. 15 and 16, much more common.
We mentioned earlier the importance of the draw, and I think one thing that's also important to talk about is the lineup among the team members. Lance, of course, was the first guy up. It's important that he sets the pace for the rest of the teammates. The U.S. team needs a strong score from the first performer so they can set up the better guys who are going to come later.
And the judge is taking more than the normal amount of time because they're establishing the pattern not only for this session, for the entire day. There's Eberhard Ginger. You hear his name often when they describe the various moves on the high bar. He was a gentleman from Germany who used those release moves. He's the judge in the center.
One of the things the judges are probably talking about is, you notice Eberhard Ginger, the head judge for the vaulting event, and on his immediate right, our camera left, is Ted Musico, who is the American judge. Because this is the first round, the judges have had meetings prior to the start of the competition, but they need to find out where a vault like that is going to be placed in terms of mid-9s, high-9s, because as I mentioned earlier, they're going to reserve some top scores for some routines which are guaranteed to be better later.
Well, I agree with that, but I don't want to let it go up too high. There will be very much better vaults, which I have seen. No, se trompera.
It's interesting, the U.S. judge fighting for the top score for Ringnold. And you see the 9-3 in the background. That is not for his score, but over in the rings. And not only is it tough for the U.S. because they're starting the first session, it's tough on the first individual in each rotation because obviously they don't want to give too high a score. That leaves them no place to go when they see something better down the line, and that's what the head judge was arguing.
That's exactly what Eberhard Ginger mentioned. He said, we will see better vaults later in the day. Let's hold some scores for some of the top gymnasts.
Ringnold still in suspense as are his teammates. Now there are 4 judges. The top and the bottom scores are eliminated, and the middle 2 are average for the score. For women, there are 6 judges, and they drop the high and low and average 4.
Okay.
And it looks like Ted Musico, the American judge, is not completely pleased with the score that's going to result.
(9-4-0) for Ringnold. That was a tough score.
It's a tough score, and of course, as we mentioned, this is a tough place to start. It could have been a 9-5, it could have been a 9-3. I think actually it was a reasonably good score considering that there are going to be much better vaulters coming up.
We'll be able to see how each judge looks at the competition. Here's Minakuchi, sophomore at the University of Illinois. We're live at almost 11:15 in the morning on Sunday from Seoul, Korea.
Once again, here's the handspring tuck front. Hey, very nice for Dominic. In fact, one of the better vaults I've seen Dominic ever perform. One of the things that was nice about that vault was the clean form on the pre-flight. As we noticed, Lance Ringnold did not have that, so this should score better. You can see right here, look at the tight form on the pre-flight. Good clean form in the air.
Minakuchi, excuse me, was one of the upsets to make this team. He finished 8th in the all-around in the Nationals and moved up in Salt Lake City in the trials. Good height, little hop, and the judges should come up with their decision much quicker this time.
Dominic is a really tough kid. He had a terrific meet at the trials, and of course he was elated, jumping all over the gym. When he made the team, a lot of us didn't expect that Dominic would be that strong at the Olympic trials, but according to the U.S. trials procedure, he made that team just as well as any of the other 5 guys.
We should bring up the name and underline Dan Hayden, who was #1 in the Nationals, suffered a dislocated shoulder in the trials, went all the way from #1 to off the team. A heartbreaking process for Hayden, who was expected to be a big help for this team. Well, a bit better. 9.50 for Minakuchi. The compulsory round for men underway. And here's Charles Lakes, 6th on the men's team. Usually that means the judges are looking for something better.
This could be great. Charlie can really vault. Okay, 1 hop on the landing, but a very explosive vault. It'll have to score reasonably well.
While we were away, you saw Ringnold's 9-3 and Minakuchi's 9-5. Then Kevin Davis, a 9-3. Wes Suter hit a 9.50, and Scott Johnson, a 9.5.
As you can see, the scores are building. Charlie is so explosive. He has tremendous push, a little break in form in the early part, but watch him kick out. That's what the judges are looking for. 1 hop on the landing, of course, will be a 1/10 of a point deduction, but he did have a good explosion out of the tuck, not to a straight body position. He was rather piked, but still it's impressive.
Now the 6 men, their scores, they'll drop the low score, and at this point it'll be a 9-3, either Ringnold or Davis, and the 5 then total for the team. It'll be interesting now as you stay with us later tonight in the next session. 9.60 for Lake, so he scores highest of the men on the vault, the U.S. men. In the next session, we'll see the Soviet Union and the Chinese, and we'll compare their scores with what we're seeing now.
Perhaps in the Soviet and Chinese teams, we'll see their lead-off scores will be 9.6, and they'll build from there. In the case of the U.S., they started off with a 9.4 from Lance Ringnold, which was a good score for Lance. However, they could only build up to 9.6, and they really tried to set up Charles Lakes, and Charles did a good vault, but he had a form break early in the pre-flight and a hop on the landing, and you really, if they set you up for the big score, you have to be there ready to nail a vault or nail the exercise so that the judges are ready to throw that big score for you.
Next rotation for the United States. You won the gold medal in the individual event there. The parallel bars when we return to Gymnastics Hall on this morning, Sunday in Seoul. Tomorrow, we're in midday on a Sunday, the men's compulsory competition, parallel bars, one of the strengths of Bart Connor.
Dick, this is definitely one of the most difficult of all the 6 compulsories. As I mentioned earlier, these are prescribed routines. Each country that is represented with the International Gymnastics Federation, they put together routines. This routine was designed by the Soviet team, and you can tell it was designed by the Soviet team because it is especially tough. And right off the bat, one of the most critical elements is a move called a peach with a half turn, and it's supposed to be done through a handstand, and there's only a few gymnasts in this event that are able to do it consistently and cleanly. Let's see if Wes Suter can do it. Okay, there's the mount. He did not pass through a handstand. It was okay, but certainly not virtuous, and that's what the judges are looking for, the extra amplitude to throw the big scores. There's a drop peach. That's another critical element, an underbar move. Wes has a nice style, though. He really has a good, clean line. His long limbs are very impressive because he looks very tall, and that's nice. Very nice. Back off with a half. Excellent.
Suter is the tallest of the U.S. team members at 5'10". That's quite tall for a gymnast. Born in Philadelphia, lives in Lincoln, Nebraska.
Now let's see what they're doing here. This is a move where you go under bar with a move called a peach, and you're supposed to twist half turn, and of course if you do that right, it should go right through the handstand. Now the way the code prescribes this move, it doesn't necessarily have to go through handstand. He did it perfectly well, but in order to get a perfect 10 or even a 9-9, the judges are going to need to see that go through the handstand. Once again, here's a very clean straddle cut, and as you can see, Wes has really very exact position. He has very clean basics, good form, and of course that will show up in the score. However, you need to be a little more explosive and a little more dynamic in these events.
So Suter, the first up for the United States on the parallel bars, and there's going to be a similarity throughout this day of gymnastics and into tomorrow morning, in fact, for those of you in the United States, as we'll have a late session tonight. Every gymnast required to make the same moves, and the judges then trying to look in the mirror and see who is the Snow White, who is fairest of them all. 9.40 for Wes Suter.
Actually, once again, like Lance Ringnold, who opened up for the U.S. team on vault, it's a very tough job for Wes Suter to get the U.S. team off to a good start, and I think that's a very respectable score.
Lance Ringnold, how does he figure on the parallel bars?
I think he's a little stronger in his optional exercise, but he is a very strong gymnast, and I do believe that over the long haul, he's going to be one of the best American gymnasts ever. He really has a good feel for the sport. Look at the nice high reverse stutz. Back uprise and a pirouette. There's the underbar peach move. It's supposed to be done with straight arms if you want the high scores. Lance had a small bend there. There's a press to a handstand. He needs to squeeze that right to a nice tight handstand. Hold it for 2 counts. And the back off with a half. Clean landing.
Lance Ringnold, he'll go from Albuquerque, New Mexico, a high school star, to the campus of the University of Nebraska after the Olympics.
This is a really great angle to watch parallel bars. I'm kind of glad, though, I didn't see it when I was competing. It might have scared me, actually. But you can see there's the move called the drop peach. Presses right up to a handstand. And even from this angle, you can see he has a good clean line. There's the front uprise and a straddle cut. And you're supposed to freeze that L and not move. Nicely done. From the handstand, once again, front uprise, straddle cut. It's important that the legs are very tight. And, of course, the form is perfect in the toe point.
They make it look so easy, like all the great athletes, but boy, for the novice to get up there, you can take a lot of skin off those armpits in a hurry. 9.50 for Lance Ringnold.
Once again, the scores are building. Wes Suter goes first, gets a 9.4. Lance goes with a 9.5. Dominic should be just a little bit better.
And and the cleanup man will be Scott Johnson. We'll return after these words from your local station. Welcome back. Men's compulsory. We're in the third rotation, and after two rotations, only one comparison for the United States team, and that's the Italian team, virtually tied. And Yuri Keki, who is very good, and that he was 6th in the world on the rings in Rotterdam in '87. He needs a 9.80 to maintain the lead after two rotations. He's last up on the rings for the Italians.
This compulsory exercise is very difficult. The tough part right here, that has to go through the handstand, as he did very nicely. Look at how tight his form is. Really straight legs, nice rhythm throughout the exercise. The judges are looking for these kinds of things. Of course, they got to maintain the stability of those rings. They have to be rock solid. Nice front giant. Now he's
just 18 years of age. He's easy to spot with that carrot red hair. The first name Yuri. Ask your parents why Yuri after anything Soviet. I said no, just like the name. Well, that 9.80 was good enough to maintain a 0.05 of a point lead after two rotations. Italy. They finished one behind the U.S. in Rotterdam. 9th were the Americans, 10th the Italians in the team competition. Now they've changed to the next rotation. The Italians will be on the vault while the U.S. on the high bar, and Dominic Minicucci has just completed his routine and is waiting for the score. And it appeared as we were watching that he did very well as the leadoff man.
Actually, one of the most difficult elements is right off the bat, much like the parallel bar routine, is a move called a half Takamoto, which was invented by Takamoto, of course, from Japan, who was a great gymnast about 20 years ago.
9.45 for Minicucci. He may have been penalized in part because he was first.
Yeah, it's very difficult to lead off, and once again, like we said, the U.S. opened the event on vault, parallel bars, and high bar. These judges are judging these routines at this Olympics for the first time.
Second up, Wes Suter.
Wes has a nice-looking high bar routine. Let's see if he can get by the very difficult opening sequence right here. Stoop in. Okay, a little flat. Now he must keep all of these elements that he must pass through the handstand. You can see here, Stalder with a half turn, a little short. Swing up just a little short. That's a nice Weiler kip. But he does have a real look at that beautiful Stalder. Long legs and clean form. This is the dismount. It's a back with a full. One step on the landing. It's going to be a mediocre score because although he had nice rhythm, you have to top off most of those elements in the handstand. You can see how difficult the mount is. It's a stem rise to a handstand. You're supposed to show the first handstand, stoop your legs through your arms, jam out with a half turn, and finish in a handstand. This is a very difficult mount. Stoop in, and of course you can see he's a little flat on that, and you'll notice some of the better gymnasts later are going to be challenging the handstand. Now Dominic Minicucci, who was up first for the U.S. team, nailed the handstands. And of course here's a clean look at the dismount. It's a laid out flip. You're supposed to be very high with a nice clean single twist, and of course you must stick the landing.
That's the automatic 10th off for that bobble at the end, the step, but he had good height, better than Minicucci. We'll see how the judges scored. You sounding as if you don't think he'll get the 9.45 that Minicucci earned.
It could be 9.4, 9.45 at the most. Unfortunately, he had some deductions that the judges are just going to have to take. And Wes is a little bit like me as a gymnast in that we both have a nice clean style, but Wes is not always sticking his dismounts, and I had trouble with that personally. Until the Olympic Games in '84, I was always taking that mandatory one step, and it was killing me. I was always losing to Peter Vidmar or to Kurt Thomas years before, but I finally got it together at the right time in '84, and I started sticking my landings, and of course it showed in my scores as it did for my teammates as well.
Wes Suter has something else in common with you, Bart. He also models men's clothes. He actually wears a little more than you do.
Yeah, I've been taking a lot of heat about my jockey ads, that's for sure.
He's done the full suit commercials. Well, they're still trying to decide on Wes Suter. Let's listen to the argumentation.
You'll have time.
Again, these are so important because as A.B. Grossfeld looks on, the scoring now is going to have a ripple effect all the way through the afternoon and evening of these compulsories.
And this is a very tense routine. You can see it in A.B. Grossfeld's face because the gymnasts have to challenge the handstands, and if you challenge the handstands, there's always a risk you might fall back the wrong way. And that's the thing that gymnasts don't want to give away. They might lose a 10th here and a 10th there, but they don't want to give away a major break. And of course, we had trouble with that in '84 because we wanted to top off the handstands, but you're scared to death in competition because, let's face it, you're so juiced, you're so energized that even though you're trying to convince yourself that it's just like practice, it ain't just like practice. This thing matters.
So as we watch the high bar routine throughout this evening and again tomorrow morning, U.S. time, we're going to look for that handstand, and if you go over, that's 5/10 of a point. If you don't quite make it, maybe it's only 1/10 or 2/10 off.
But of course, as we mentioned earlier, for the gymnasts to have hopes for individual medals, they're going to have to try and nail all the handstands because, let's face it, a 9.6 or a 9.7 is nice. I've always considered that sort of a certificate of participation. Thank you for coming. Glad to have you at the Olympics, but we're not going to see you in the finals.
Kevin Davis will be next when the decision is finally official. And there it is, 9.35. 9.35. You see the high scores from China and Taipei. Swedes and the Brazilians, 9.3. Kevin Davis next. He was second to Dan Hayden in the national championships, Houston.
This is a good event for Kevin. He has a very strong optional. Let's see if he can put together and top off all of the handstands here in his compulsory. Stem and stoop. Pretty nice. Not quite exactly on top, but very nicely done. Acceptable for sure. Stalder half turn.
Quite up, though.
Just a little short on those. But he does have a good rhythm throughout the exercise. And, of course, the judges are looking for the style and the execution. As you can see, really clean lines. Good form, and he has to pop that dismount off the ceiling, and a good landing. That will score well. Let's look once again at this very difficult mount. With the under grip, he's going to stem to a handstand, stoop in, and he almost hit it. He was off by a couple of degrees, but if I were giving it to him, I'd give it to him. He really showed the position, even though he didn't stall on top, which of course you don't want to get stuck up there. But you do want to top off the handstands. I think he did that very nicely. There's a beautiful late twisting full. Nice position in the air.
Good landing. His mother will appreciate that. She was a ballerina in the San Francisco Ballet.
You can see how tough the high bar is on the hands, although we do have a little cheater apparatus. Those are leather hand guards that are Velcroed around your wrist, and you have a dowel rod down at the end of your fingers, and that actually gives you a little extra grip. You can sort of hang it out there as far as you can on the ends of your fingers to give impression of a long, clean line.
You shake hands with these guys, and you think you're shaking hands with sandpaper. You wonder if they still have those guards on, and those are just the calluses that come with the trade. Again, a long study of the scores. We've got a 9.45, Minicucci, then Suter with a 9.35. Kevin Davis seemed to be much better than the first two, and now the judges will tell us what they think.
As we noted earlier, the gymnasts are supposed to get better as the lineup moves on, and the scores naturally get better. However, with Wes's 9.35, it's going to take a lot. It's going to be hard to jump, but the judges did 9.6. They saw that was a nice return.
So Kevin Davis scores well, and the judge from Taipei liked it best of all. Throughout the Chinese and Taipei, and then the average is 9.6. Scott Johnson.
This is a tough routine for Scotty because unlike Kevin and Wes Suter, he doesn't have that long line, so he's going to have to top off those handstands. Okay, not bad. Oh, that is the major break we were talking about, Dick. You cannot let that happen.
That's at least 5/10.
At least.
Plus what it does to you the rest of the routine.
Now Scott, of course, continues the exercise from the point where the mistake is made. But he knows. I know going right through his mind right now, is it worked for me? Is it, oh my God.
So Johnson, the veteran, the leader at 26 of this U.S. team, the only carryover with the injury to Tim Daggett from 1984, and he has the first major break of the competition for the U.S.
As I mentioned earlier, this is a very finicky routine. Actually, this half Takamoto is a little flat, And I think he tried to compensate for that. He was flat on the first one, so he tried to really top off this handstand, and he fell back the wrong way. He was supposed to continue over the bar and, of course, keep in the giant swing with the mixed grip position. Once again, you can see he was really going for the handstand. And, of course, when you're that short, there's not a lot you can do. So he casts back up and continues the exercise, but it'll be a major, major deduction.
Charlie Lakes will be next. He's one of the U.S. gymnasts that is looking for a possible medal chance in the individual events, and of course the high bar would be his best. Check that. Lakes is 2 away. Lance Ringnold will be 5th, and then Lakes 6th. As Scott Johnson waits to hear just how disastrous the news will be.
And this is a very bad moment for the team because, as I mentioned earlier, the U.S. individual medal hopes ride with Lance Ringnold and Charles Lakes on the high bar. The U.S. team needs to be building the scores to set up these guys, and unfortunately, with Scott's mistake right before Lance is to go, and then Charlie, it's going to really be tough for them to get the 9-8 or the 9-9s. If they do it, they're going to have to do it all on their own with no help from the teammates.
Kind of like a baseball umpire, isn't it? If you're throwing ball, 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 even when you throw a strike on the outside edge, he's going to call it a ball because he's accustomed to doing that. You set either a positive or a negative tempo for the judges. You put them in a mood, and when you see the Soviets later tonight and the Chinese, they don't give the judges many chances to think anything but positive thoughts.
Really a very tough break for Scott Johnson, who is one of the U.S. best hopes in the all-around. And, of course, the competition here is so deep and so close, this is going to kill him.
8-7-5. That not only hurts Johnson, of course, they'll throw out the one low score, but oh, my. So we leave on a somewhat negative note for Scott Johnson and the U.S., but we go where we're looking for positive. To diving, Charlie Jones.
Thank you.
And while you were away, Lance Ringnold, the 18-year-old, was up on the high bar, and he seemed happy with his performance. Let's go back while Charlie Lakes waits for his turn and to complete the rotation.
And even though Lance is joking around a lot, I think this is a really tough time for the U.S. team because they haven't yet built a momentum and started that scoring trend. It goes up to the ceiling. Of course, in Los Angeles, at this point, we were averaging about 9.8 per performer.
And that's the best score of any of the 5 men for the U.S. on the high bar. 9.70 for the man who admires the Soviets, Ringnold. He says, I love that Liukin and Bilazerchev. Well, he has good role models. Here's Charlie Lakes.
I think Charlie Lakes' medal hopes here in these games is all right here. Not bad, a little out of line. That was nice. He's just a little short of the handstands, but not a duck. That was a very nice kick to the handstand. He has a nice smooth rhythm. He really flexes that bar. And watch this dismount. Whoa, nice. That was one of the best full twisting flyaways I've ever seen.
Charlie Lakes, 24-year-old from Newhall, California. His coach, Dan Connolly, coached the 1984 Olympic gold medalist Mitch Gaylord of the U.S.
Who also was a specialist on the high bar in many ways. You can see as Charlie gets ready to do his mount here that he didn't have a lot of confidence because his teammates had some trouble earlier. He didn't feel confident to really go for the handstand. You know, if that momentum starts to build, you really start to challenge. And you can see he was just a little short. But the rest of the exercise, I must admit, was very smooth and clean. Good rhythm.
For Charlie Lakes, he has the best score on the first 3 rotations, as we'll see that dismount, and that may have gotten him to a 9.80. 9.80 for Lakes. The Italian team, after 3 rotations, leading the U.S. by 0.2 of a point, and there are the scores. The Brazilian judge giving Lakes a 9.9. So 3 rotations complete, 3 to go in this compulsory round, the first of 3 sessions today in gymnastics. Now let's go back to diving.
Dick Enberg. Dick?
All right, Brian, in a matter of comparison, this is a lot to read here, so let us walk you through it. This is the team competition compulsory comparing today's performance with the U.S. team that won the gold medal in 1984. So far tonight, Italy, in fact, after 3 rotations, leading by 0.15 of a point. That in itself is a surprise. Compare the 143.30 tonight with the team after 3 rotations in 84, 3.5 points higher just midway through the rotations. 4.5 actually, and then China second, Japan third. So we're way behind the performance of that '84 gold medal team. Now let's go to the fourth rotation, floor exercise. Charlie Lakes is 6th up for the United States.
Charlie is actually very explosive. We saw him get through a very nice clean high bar. This is probably, in my opinion, his second best event because he just tumbles off the ceiling. Nice high front, and watch his Arabian dive roll. Look at him glide through that. There's a toe touch. Boy, I tell you, that's hard on the old toes. I tried that once. Just about broke them off. Now, this is very difficult. This is a side scale. And after all that exercise, it's important to freeze that. And the judges need to see that hold position for 2 seconds. Here's the press. It's a rock up, hollow back, press to handstand. So far, the rhythm of this routine is very nice. No deductions. Oh, a little sloppy on that dive back handspring. Minor form break. Now here's the last tumbling run. Notice there's no run. It's just a hurdle to a round-off flip-flop, pike open, a little short. Charlie tried to fake that landing like he stuck it, and he was going to walk away so as if the judges didn't see it. This is certainly the best part of the exercise right here. Look at the front flip. Skies that one. Now watch the air time on this Arabian dive roll. He must be at least 7 feet in the air.
Of course, those are the kinds of moves he'll showcase in the optional round. That's his strength, his great power.
Now you can see what he tried to pull off here. I've done this before myself in competition. If you don't quite stick a landing, you pretend like you're heading off to go down the steps and hope that say, oh yeah, I stuck it. Yeah, no problem. Okay, yeah, I'm going to go now. Well, I think the judges got that one, Dick.
And the score just posted 9.70. 9.70 for Lakes. That matches Scott Johnson's 9.70. Completes the fourth rotation on the floor. And after 4 with 2 to go, here's the comparison. Only 2 teams in this first session, Italy and the United States. Italy finished 10th in the world in Rotterdam, the U.S. 9th. And the Italians now leading by a surprising 7/10 of a point. 2 rotations to go, Bryant.
With a few bright spots.
With Bart Kenner and Mary Lou Retton. Here are the standings after the morning session. Only the Italian and U.S. teams involved, and judging from the individual all-around standings, you can tell the Italians were surprisingly good and the United States down, except for Charlie Lakes in second place in the all-around. But what's important is the average score. Even the best, Prete of Italy, under 9.8. 9.8 won't do it for a medal when you look ahead to the all-arounds. And we have the men on the floor now in this compulsory session, the Soviet Union and the Chinese, who are capable of the 9.8s, 9.9s, and maybe even a 10 tonight. The Soviets start on the high bar, and the Chinese on the pommel horse.
I think one thing that's interesting to note, Dick, is you were talking about the Americans averaging around a 9.5. Well, if you say the next guy comes up and gets a 9.8, well, it's only a 3/10 difference. But when it gets staggering is when you multiply that times 30 performances, and that's what the average is all about, you're all of a sudden 9 points off the pace if you're not getting those 9.8s.
And the Chinese have trouble on the pommel horse right off the bat. Lee Chung-young. Here is the second Soviet in the rotation on the high bar, Vladimir Novikov. He's only 18 years of age. Soviets surprisingly have an 18-year-old Novikov, and the youngest man in the competition who is being introduced to the world, Sergei Kardikov. Only 17. He bumped off a world champion. A world champion is the ultimate for the Soviets. That's how good they are.
When I first saw Novikov, I didn't really like his style. There was something about, I don't know, it was just something about his line or his body positions that didn't look that good. Well, he's improved a lot in the last couple of years, and it's hard to believe that he's so young because he has really a tremendous expertise in all of the fundamental skills, and that's one of the reasons why he's a solid member of the team. And of course, we talked about the importance of the compulsories. The emphasis here is the fundamentals, the basics, and if the gymnasts are true masters of the sport, then they know how to do all the skills well, not just the skills that they use in their optional exercises.
That's Gogolatse, who was first up in this rotation, and here is his routine.
This is the last part of the high bar compulsory, and as we saw earlier, it's important that the gymnasts show technical precision, clean line, good rhythm, and excellent form. Here's the dismount. It's a layout flyaway with a full twist, very high, and of course, the first guy out of the box is already sticking his landings.
And he gets only a 9.65, although had he been, say, positioned 5th or 6th in the rotation, he might have gotten another full point higher. He's more or less sacrificed, and the scores will become higher. But the better he does, the better those behind him, if they have a clean routine, will score.
Here's the tricky mount again. That's the way you're supposed to do it. Stoop through and jam right to the handstand. Once again, right through the handstand. As we mentioned earlier, the key on the high bar routine is to press all of those moves right to the top and challenge the handstand. Now, that's the risky thing to do in the competition because, of course, there's always risk you might fall back the other way. But the Soviets are so well conditioned that they're going to challenge every handstand and try to stick every landing.
Novikov and the Soviets off to a start that promises to be as golden as everyone expects. It would be a major upset of these championships, the entire Olympics, if they don't win a gold in team gymnastics for the men.
Now watch how tricky this is. He's going to stem up to a handstand and stoop through, and he's got to jam with a half turn and top that off right on top. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Novikov waiting for his score. Let's go to the pommel horse for a moment, where the Chinese are on this rotation.
This, once again, is Wang Chongsheng finishing the exercise, and he really has a nice, clean style. Very high elevation above the horse, which is one of the things that the judges are looking for.
Novikov scores 9.70 for his high bar routine for the Soviets. So they start with a 9.65 and a 9.70, and they've got Lyukin and Belozerchev. Oh, boy, it's like the Yankees of 1927. We'll be right back. Welcome back. The Soviets and the Chinese expected to go 1-2 in the competition in their first day of gymnastics. Li Ning, what a star in Los Angeles. His 6 medals. No athlete in any sport won as many as 6. Here's Ning just moments ago on the pommel horse.
And pommel horse is always really scary to start on because you have a lot of nerves. You've been waiting for this moment for 4 years, and this is certainly the most perilous events because it's like the balance beam for the women. You have to be juiced, but you can't be overly explosive or you might just fly right off the thing. He really has a nice, clean rhythm. His optional exercise is outstanding, but his compulsory, as you can see, all of his fundamental techniques are exactly right on. And a great dismount. Inside loop with a half.
25-year-old Li Ning, a 9.80 on the pommel horse. He's a national hero in China. Led them to the '83 World Championship. Now here is Lyukin, the sensational Soviet.
This is a really tough kid. We've talked for the last couple of weeks about how explosive he is in his optional exercises. Well, if he hopes to challenge Belozerchev, he's going to have a good day here in the compulsories, and he had a great start there on the high bar routine.
And he follows a 9.90 from his teammate Artemov.
He really has improved his style. He used to be kind of sloppy, but his form is excellent now. And I think he realizes that if he wants to challenge for gold medals, whoa, he's got to have more than just the exciting dynamic skills. He also has to have the clean form. And it looks like he's got it all now, Dick.
And you get a real feeling for how the scores start to build. And with Belozerchev hitting in the hole, he's batting 6th. He'll be next.
Once again, here's the stem and the stoop through, the move called a half Takamoto, invented by the Japanese gymnast Takamoto. That move has to pass through handstand. And of course, his dismount is probably the best part of the exercise. First of all, a beautiful stalder. But watch how he hangs this flyaway with a full. He hangs it up in the air for a long time and then cracks the twist and drops out about 12 or 14 feet in the air. That's the way you do it.
That's like jumping out of a second-story window. Lyukin waits for the score. Again, just to show you how they developed. Kogalatsia 9.65, Novikov 9.70, Kardikov 9.65, Artemov 9.90, and there's Belozerchev. He'll be 6th in the rotation. And it would appear Lyukin at least is at a 9.9 on that routine, unless the judges spotted something that we didn't see.
I think he was a little bit over on the mount. He could top that off a little bit more. Certainly the judges are looking for every element to be maxed out. 9.9 is his score, of course. Not too shabby, huh?
You see the difference for those of you with us earlier and watching the Italians and the United States in the first session. And somebody said, well, it really is bad luck for the U.S. You start where you know the scores are going to be lower. Well, when you compare them with the level of these gymnasts, you understand. Here's the world champion 2 times.
Here we go. Nice. He's just squeezing out every little bit of extension. Look at the timing. He's a little slower than the other gymnasts. But look at how he presents the exercise. What style, what elegance.
What a man. 21-year-old Dmitry Belozerchev. You know the story. When he was 16, he won the world's youngest ever. That was '83. 2 years later, just before the World Championships, auto accident. His leg was caught between the brake and the clutch and almost severed his leg. He had been a normal human rather than a Soviet treasure. They would have amputated the leg. He works, comes back, and wins the world again last year.
It's amazing that he even made the Soviet team, let alone come back to win. But watch how he squeezes the handstand out of that move. Really elegant work. It's very explosive and yet very elegant at the same time. One of the things that I think is especially nice about his style is he goes a little slower than the other gymnasts. He takes his time, and it looks as if he's extending right through the bottom of his feet. And of course, no problem on the dismount.
Dmitry Belozerchev, a 9.90 for him. So Artemov, Lyukin, and Belozerchev all with 9.9s. And after the first rotation, the Soviets already a full point ahead on the team score over the Chinese. Oh my, there's Li Ning. He had a 9.80. See why he's a possible movie star of the future. Hong Kong, China, even Hollywood's calling. Gymnastics continues. We're in the second rotation, and the Soviets are on the floor. Second man up is Novikov. Gogolatsi with a 9.80 to set the table.
Sure would be nice following a score like that, because the coaches know that, the gymnasts know it, the judges know that you're building to your best performance. And certainly getting off with a 9.8 is a good way to start the event. Novikov really shows the elegance of this tumbling run, the cartwheel, dive, cartwheel, back handspring. This is a very odd floor routine for a compulsory. I actually don't like it at all, because this last tumbling run, watch, you can't run, you have to jump, round off back handspring, pike open, and it's very difficult to do it as well as Novikov did, because you can't show off your speed or your power unless you can generate it out of no steps at all. And of course, maybe that's the toughest test.
Vladimir Novikov. He's from Vladimir in the Soviet Union. Not named after him, but if he keeps this up, he may get at least a street.
He shows great flexibility here in the pancake. Back extension. Now watch, he's going to bend his knees and try and explode out. Very difficult to do this. Round off back handspring, pike open, and you have to explode out of the pike so that you can finish standing straight up and down. And of course, he did that very nicely. We'll see it better, though.
Now at 18, and then with Kardikov only 17, you can see what the Soviets are doing. They're the best in the world by far as a team, and yet they still have you 9.85. Oh my.
Here they go. They're building to their better performance. We might even see a 10 here if the routines are that much better.
There's a look at the judging. 4 judges. They drop out the high and the low. The high from the GDR, East Germany and Canada, 9.9.
The high bar. Very nicely done. Good height, good clean line in the air.
Meanwhile, here's the youngster, Kardikov.
This kid is a real talent. I think the Soviet coaches, in fact, the other day when I was speaking with Akayev, the Soviet national coach, he said this is one of the biggest surprises on the Soviet team because he is so young and he's seemingly very steady in competition for a young athlete.
Great poise.
How about that? Look at the nice line, extension, good toe point. That's a very pretty handstand. Cartwheel, dive, cartwheel, back handspring. All of this looks relatively easy. And it is. The judges realize that these are fundamental skills, and the gymnasts are being tested and compared directly on how well they do the basics. Here's that dismount, pike open. Oh, he had to pike down just a little bit, but he had nice height in the air.
17 years old. budding gymnastic Bereshnikov. Sergei Kardakov, he's 5'5.5", 132 pounds. Let's look at the standings after the first rotation. This also includes the first rotation from the first session, U.S. and Italy, and you see they've already dropped out of the top 4. Soviet Union already a sizable lead over Bulgaria, Romania. China drops to 4th. They had a lot of trouble in the pommel horse. Italy is 5th and U.S. 6th. Of course, we have still another session later tonight here in Seoul that'll feature the East Germans. 9-9 was that ring routine. There's Kardakov. He has a 9-9, but only the East German judge scoring at 9-8. And the cheer in the background, a Korean vaulter. Of course, they are cheering every move of their team. On the floor, Dmitry Bilazerchev. He's 4th in the order with Artemis and then Lyukin 6th.
Of course, this is one of the events where you can see that Bilazerchev is really testing the strength of his leg after that unbelievably bad injury a few years back. And of course, that move there is very difficult because it's a toe touch and you have to come crashing down. And it seems like I've seen him practice that very rarely. In fact, it looks like he saves that event, that skill, for doing it just in the meets.
It was his left leg that was fractured, and then he worked so hard that he actually had to have surgery on his right ankle because he put so much pressure on it.
Cartwheel, dive, cartwheel, back handspring. I think his younger teammate Kardakov had a little more height on that, although Bilazerchev sure has really a nice poise and a tremendous style. He really takes his time and says, hey, look at me. Nice finish. Now, he wasn't as high as Kardakov, but he finished higher because he opened a little bit later.
And every one of their dismounts just stuck cleanly.
This is a really nice combination. This is a real test for the athletes because they have to do neck kip to a Healy twirl, which is a move that you'll see on parallel bars later. And this is the press. You rock up and press the handstand. You must hold that for 2 counts, and you have to have a nice, even press all the way up to a solid, straight body.
Rings were once called the Roman rings, apparently originating in Italy, this exercise. Old ones were made of iron. Bilazerchev, 9-9-0. Just to give you an idea again how good the Soviets are, all morning, all the athletes, we had 1-9-9 score. We've already had 5 posted by the Soviets in 2 rotations.
This is Vladimir Artyomov, and he's one of my favorite gymnasts on the Soviet team because I love his style and I love his technique. I think he's one of the best parallel bar workers in the world, as we'll see that in a few moments when they rotate around to the parallel bars. But he's also been a medalist on the floor, partly because of his explosive tumbling, but he's not known for his explosive tumbling. More than that, he's known for his style. Look how easily he presses down the pancake. And this will be a tough test for him, the pike open. Not as high as the others, but of course the routine really left no room for deduction.
Artyomov completing his exercise. Just a note, there has never been a compulsory perfect 10 for men in the Olympic Games, and the man quite capable of a 10, and especially when we get to the optional round is up next, Lyukin. Now back to the rings, and Li Ning, this just a moment ago.
Yeah, Li Ning had some trouble. Here's the dismount. It's a flyaway with a full, and look, his foot caught the strap and then the rings. And that is going to completely take him out of the running of the all-around.
Wow, I wonder if we could see that again. That is incredible. Li Ning has such a great personality. You can see why he's so popular in China. He almost caught his foot in the ring, and to land that well, it shows his talent that he didn't crash.
He is up there about 15 feet in the air, and it looks like you can see his legs caught the strap and crashed. Unbelievable. You know, he has been so unlucky in major events. When I saw him in 1982, I thought he was going to dominate the world of gymnastics. But since then, he has really had problems putting a complete all-around program together. And once again, a really silly error for Li Ning. That's something you can avoid.
9-4, so even out of that major break, he was able to salvage a fair score. Here's Lyukin on the floor.
This guy, of course, is the one we're anticipating seeing a triple back in a couple of days in the optional exercises, but
our team off 9.95 preceding Liukin.
So there's a setup here. Perhaps the 10 is available if Liukin can hit solidly. Hollow back press. He must go slow, but he must show control. Oh, that's a nice dive back handspring where he reached back and touched his thighs to emphasize how much air time he had. Okay, here's the big test of dismount. Pike open. How about that? Could be the first 10 of the Olympics.
Ever. Liukin, he could be the man that the Soviet Union is setting up to win this world championship. They've been fairly even in distributing that number 6 position between Bilazerchev and Liukin.
And on the compulsory exercises, I think Liukin actually got the best lineup of all, because in 6 of the 6 events, he's up last 3 times. And you can really see why. He has improved so much in terms of his style and his presentation. He was known for so many years as being just a trickster. But not only can he do the triple flips, but he also has beautiful line and elegant presentation. There's the pike open, round off back handspring, in tight and out quickly. A perfect landing.
But it doesn't get the 10, a 9.90 for Liukin. So Bilazerchev gets a 9.9. And our team off scores a 9.95, best of the Soviets. There was 1.10, the Canadian judge impressed, but the other 3 a 9.9. Oh, the Soviet machine is rolling. 4 rotations to go. Welcome back. The haunting of the Chinese men's team continues. They lost 84 gold to the U.S. when they were heavily favored, and they've had trouble tonight, but not the Soviets. And here's Artyomov on the horse.
I think Artyomov's technique is incredible. He has tremendous height above the horse. He did bump the horse on that loop, but look at the nice extension in the scissors and the elevation. It's a move called a backmore downhill. Now he's going to care in and then travel to the end for a loop with a half turning inside. Very clean routine.
And a 9.8 for Artyomov, and Li Ning, who had trouble on the rings. Remember, he almost caught his foot in the rings, had a 9.4. Here he is on the vault. You get one chance.
Look at this. Can you believe that? Li Ning once again having trouble on the easy stuff. This stuff is easy for this guy. And I know he's laughing it off, but that's got to break his heart, because not only is he one of the best vaulters in the world, but you can see what he's trying to do here is he's actually trying to stick it. He opens up just a hair early, and he doesn't have the rotation. It looks like his feet slip a little bit, and there's nothing you can do. That score is going to kill him.
Well, obviously a major break. They still have not posted the score. Here it comes now. 9-2. Here's Bilazerchev on the horse.
This is the man everybody's trying to beat on the pommel horse. Look at that. It's a reverse scissor traveling up to the middle. It was the highest one so far. Once again, very much like Artyomov, perfect body line and toe point. He was a little forward, but he's so strong, he can compensate. That guy is incredible.
Bilazerchev, who has 2 9.9s in the first 2 rotations. Here's a unique view.
This is a good perspective. This is actually what the gymnasts see. They see their feet flying in front of them and then going around back. And you can see he does a very nice inward turn on that loop of the half. In contrast, Liukin doesn't have the same kind of rhythm that Bilazerchev has. Now, he has good technique, but he does look a little choppier to me. Oh, a little forward, and he brushed his feet. He was a little tight on that pommel horse routine. His optional is actually much better than his compulsory.
Meanwhile, Bilazerchev scored a 9.9, so he has 3 straight 9.9s in the first 3 rotations.
This is the scissor work. Scissor with a half turn. Once again, he really has good position and good technique, but I think partly because he's a little shorter than Bilazerchev, he doesn't have that nice long swing, and it doesn't give you the impression of this tremendous sweeping body movement that you get from the little taller gymnasts.
Liukin, of course, his strengths, the vault and the floor exercise.
Once again, you can see he's traveling from the end. That's a move called a care in that goes to the middle. And of course, in this exercise, They're required to touch all 3 ends as the routine is prescribed, and there's the loop with an inside turn with a half. A complex routine, not a very difficult routine, but a finicky sequence of skills.
9.85 for Liukin, and here again the Soviets, they have to drop out the low score, and the low score is 9.70. Last time the low score was 9.8. That would have been a top score for the United States on most of the rotations. Meanwhile, Lo Yun, the world champion in the vault, scored a 9.9 on his vault to complete the Chinese rotation in that event. Well, we have a chance to look at it just moments ago. Here's Lo Yun, brilliant, strong, built like a truck. Look at those legs.
There's a handspring front. Oh, that's how you want to do it, Dick. One of the best things about that vault was the way he opened out of the tuck. That's what the judges were looking for.
And but for that little hop at the end, he got a 9.9 even with that little hop. So the gymnastics continue. We're halfway through this compulsory round. 3 rotations to go right after these words from your local station. With Bart Connor, Dick Enberg, we're back at the Gymnastics Hall, and we're about to see Marius Toba of the Romanians, who are pressing the Chinese for 3rd place at the moment after 3 rotations. The Soviet Union are already opening some space between themselves and the rest of the countries in gymnastics. Bulgaria surprising 2nd. China having the kind of trouble at their level that the United States experienced in the morning session. Don't forget, we still have a powerful East German team to see tonight in the final session of the compulsory. So the battle for the team silver and bronze is becoming much more interesting with the failures of the Chinese. Here's Marius Toba, 20-year-old Romanian.
He won this year's American Cup in Fairfax, Virginia, with some strong optional exercises. And you can see here, he really has compulsory exercises that can compare with his strength in the optionals.
Sister, also a gymnast, got him started in the sport.
Tremendous flexibility there in the scale. That was a little low. That's the Healy twirl we've been looking at. This is nice. Take his time on the press to handstand. Good toe point, good line. He really is trying to extend himself. You can see the stretch. It's like he's reaching out with his hands and stretching out with his legs so that everything is as long as possible. He's a really little guy, and yet he doesn't look that small. He seems to have a good presentation. Nice dismount.
20-year-old Marius Toba from Rosita in industrial town in central Romania, a 9.90. They've completed 3 rotations, and the Romanians moving in front of the Chinese into 3rd place. So China having a disastrous 2nd session in this compulsory round, and the Soviet Union flying. We've got more of them to come. A country of 40 to 50 million, South Korea, more than 10 million here in the city of Seoul, and some 10,000 here at Gymnastics Hall. We're in the 4th rotation, the 2nd session. The Soviets have moved to the rings, and the Chinese to the parallel bars, but it's all Soviet Union as expected. Gogaladze in the upper left, and the Chinese on the parallel bars, the lower right. Let's check on Gogaladze, who leads off for the Soviets.
Gogaladze has led off every.
Vladimir Gogaladze, the Soviet Union. What a leadoff man. You can almost compare the Soviet 1 through 6 to a baseball batting order. You need a leadoff man and get on there and get some runs for you. Doesn't have to hit home runs, but he sets the table. So it is here in the rotations for gymnastics.
And once again, Gogaladze gets on base with a beautiful dislocate shoot through the handstand and a clean, not the highest, but a very clean full twisting flyaway dismount.
Meanwhile, the Bulgarians, a surprising 2nd at the moment. Garaskov on the vault. They get 1 vault, not 2, just 1. 1 shot is all you get.
Here's the handspring tuck front. Okay, a little sloppy in the air. You can see he had to pull his legs apart. I can see that he was looking for the landing. That's one of the things that the gymnasts do, is separate your legs a little bit and you peek down for the floor, because this move is blind. The landing is impossible to see. Handspring front, you can see right here, he's looking And it jars him actually a little bit because he didn't quite bring his head all the way around and finish the double front.
So Galatze, meanwhile, waiting for his score, and there it is, a 9-8, a 9-9 from the West German.
Beautiful straddle L, very high above the rings. Back to a flange and a front uprise. That's amazing that he took a hop on the landing. That's so un-Soviet-like.
That's the first time we've seen it tonight. Meanwhile, Lubomir Goratskov on the vault. See, what was his score again? Goratskov on the vault. We want to check that just to clean up unfinished business. We'll get that for you.
He has tremendous shoulder flexibility. He does the back uprise here, and this is the straddle L. He has to hold that move, and he presses back through a flange, and then lay away to a move called a front uprise to an L. And he does a nice job at keeping the ring still. There's the hollow back press to a handstand, which shows the strength. The nice tight line in the handstand. There's a front giant swing, and then he comes right below the rings with a dislocate through the top, right through the handstand. Fly away, single twist, and a surprising hop on the landing.
Goratskov had a 9.60 on the vault. Novikov waiting for his results, taking some time. As you see, it's an added element where we can show you what each judge from each country scores. That sometimes creates some interesting choices. Leaning.
This is Lo Yun, actually. He's on the parallel bars. Lo Yun started with the peach with a half, as we had seen earlier. Oh, he's got a bend there. Oh, that's a tremendous fault. It's incredible that he gave those points away on a very easy move, Dick.
Chinese are not sharp at all. Their two stars are making more mistakes than those earlier in the lineup.
This is the press to the handstand. Of course, he already knows that the rest of this exercise is easy for him. He's thinking right now, I can't believe, look at him, he's giving up. Actually, he completely under-rotated that move, and it looked like he didn't care. Here's what happens. He does a pirouette, drops through to a peach to a handstand. That was actually very nicely done. Front uprise, straddle cut L, but the mistake came a little bit earlier on the back uprise as he caught himself and had to press up.
Maybe from this angle we can even appreciate that more.
This is really a pretty angle to see the straight handstand and the nice line. There's a back off. He has to go outside the rails, and then a late half twist, as you see right there. And if he were a little tighter on the landing, he could have stuck that. But it's obvious that once he made the mistake earlier in the routine, that he had sort of given up a little bit. He had at least let down.
So the Chinese expected, they were a solid pick to finish second in these championships as a team. They've fallen to fourth already, and there's still some tough teams ahead tonight. The East Germans being one of those. 9-4-0 the score. There you have France, the Soviet Union, East Germany, and Australia, and their scores.